Okay, so we're in page 74, and we got to Tanur Rabbanan. Now we're dealing with the labor of selecting. Ayu lefanav minei ochalin. If one had types of food before him, so this part is unclear. It seems to be contradicting itself. It says borer ve'ochel. One can select and eat. Borer u'maneach, he can select and leave. Ve'lo ivro, but then it says not to select. Ve'im berer chayav chatat. If one did select, he's liable to chatat. It's unclear what's going on here. There's something permissible, something forbidden. So Maika Amar. So there are a few ways to Amoraim try to explain this Braita. Some of them are rejected, and some of them became the halacha. So Amar Ula, Achika Amar. What the Braita says, according to Ula, is it depends on for what time are you doing it. Borer ve'ochel levo bayam. One is permitted to select and eat on this for the same day. Borer umaniach levo bayam. You can select and leave it if the purpose is to use it on the same day. But if you do it for tomorrow, then you should not do it. And then you're liable to chatat. So according to Ula, what matters is the timing. What's the reason for? What is borer? You separate the good from the bad. Yeah, the separation of the good from the bad is borer.
So this says I can do it in the morning for Suda, later.
According to Ula, you could, but it's not the halacha. Yeah, halacha doesn't follow this. Yeah, so that's what Ula said, but then he's rejected because Matkif la Rav Chisda, v'chi mutar le'efot levo bayom. You say that selection is permitted for the same day, but not for tomorrow. If it's a labor, if it's for forbidden labor, why would it matter if you do it for today or for tomorrow? Is one permitted to bake for the same day? Does it matter if you bake for today or if you bake for tomorrow? It makes no difference. V'chi mutar levashel levo bayom. Is it permitted to cook for the same day? Of course not. So therefore, Ela Amar Rav Chisda, here's another way to explain the Braita. Borer ve'ochel pachot mikashiur. One is permitted to select less than the minimum measure. The measure is kigrogeret. Grogeret is like a dried fig. So if you select less than that, then it's okay. Borer u'maniach pachot mikashiur. If you select it, whether to eat it or to leave it, if you do less than the minimum measure, you're fine. The measure, one should not select that measure of grogeret. And then if one did it, he's liable to chatat. And here, according to him, it does not matter if it's for the next day or for today. That makes no difference because he says if it's a labor, it's a labor, whether it's for today or for tomorrow. So what matters according to Rav Chisda is the measurement.
But what about the whole concept of Meichel Shabbos L'chol?
That's only a rabbinic thing. Now here we're dealing with the biblical definition of the labor. But then this is also rejected because Matkif la Rav Yosef, v'chi mutar le'efot pachot mikashiur. Just by the way, interruption. This week we don't need masks outside, right? Because of the heat. Yeah.
It didn't work.
Now it doesn't work. I'm seeing a live video. Maybe try and go again to. You don't see. That's the Zoom. The Zoom is hearing, but I see live video on Facebook. I see that right now.
Yeah.
It says live.
Yeah. Okay. All right. It doesn't appear to be right now.
Try to refresh, maybe.
Okay, you're back. Okay. There's video call. Hope that's correct.
Paused? No, here it says live.
Right.
Okay. And I'm not moving. Okay.
What's the main thing? You got him?
I think so. Unless I listened
Okay.
to him today, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Okay.
live. It's live. Still the same. This is you, right? You got the same person?
Looks like, yeah.
Sure. Strong resemblance.
Baruch
We're
Hashem.
on Zoom sometimes.
Okay. Ela, Amar Rav Yosef. Now come actually three different explanations, and interestingly, all three of them became the halacha. The halacha is that you need three conditions can permit selection on Shabbat. If you do it with your hand and not with a tool, if you do it for an immediate use and not for later, and if you separate the good from the bad and not the bad from the good. So these are actually the three following answers that became the halacha altogether. Right. So therefore, Ela Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, Borer ve'ochel, the permission applies to bayad. If you do it using your hand, no tool, then it's okay. Borer u'maniach bayad. You can select whether you want it for immediate use or to leave it for a while. According to Rav Yosef, it's also fine. Bekanon u'vetamchui lo ivror. Now, kanon and tamchui are two different instruments.
Funnel or a large plate.
Funnel or large plate. Okay. So these are vessels with which you could select. You could do selection with these vessels, but they're not the professional sift. So with these, there's a rabbinic prohibition to use. ואם ברר פטור אבל אסור. And then ונפל וכברה, with a sift, of course, there's a biblical prohibition. Sieve, actually, right? Sieve. Sieve. Okay, sieve. Sifting is the verb.
Yeah.
ונפל וכברה לא יברור ואם ברר חייב חטאת. So that's Rav Yosef's explanation of the Braita. Even though this is also challenged, it remains one of the conditions of the halacha that the selection is only permitted if you use your hand and not with a tool. And then Matkifla Rav Imnuna midei kanon v'tamchui katani. Does the Braita mention any funnel or any plate? Does not mention that. Ela Amar Rav Imnuna borer ve'ochel. The permission applies to ochel mitoch hapsolet. If you select the good from the bad, the food from the residue, that's okay. Borer u'maniach ochel mitoch hapsolet. That you can select. Why? Because that's not the normal way of selection. Usually people select, they remove the bad from the good.
Yeah.
They leave the good and they take out the bad. But if you take the good out, that's an abnormal way of selecting, and that's why it's permitted on Shabbat. Actually, Tashbat say that it depends on the majority. Usually remove the minority.
In other words, there's no pasuk that says it. It's only because it's a shinoi, right?
Yeah, any labor you do with a shinui in an abnormal way is not biblically forbidden. So sometimes there's a rabbinic prohibition, but in this case, if you have a few conditions fulfilled, if you do it in an abnormal way, and also you do it by hand, and also for immediate use, there's not even a rabbinic decree against it.
What if we had two different piles? And they were the same mixture. You took out less than the shear from each one. Okay, even if you took bad from the good. There's the wrong in the shinui, if you did it the normal way. Took out hot and shear, so put them together.
So then you have a shiur.
Eat that or not, but you then be a violation.
So that combines even before you eat it. Once you select it, that's it. You perform the labor. So if you did two half measures, so then they combine.
What if he ate? He then ate less than a shear of that combination.
The issue is on separating.
Not only eating, it's only separating.
Yeah. Okay, so that's another condition. And then Matkifla Abaye challenges this, and even though he challenges it, it remains one of the conditions for the permission. Says Abaye, midei ochel mitoch psholet katani. Does the Braita mention any difference between the good from the bad or the bad from the good? Ela Amar Abaye borer ve'ochel le'altar. The permission applies to an immediate use. If you select it for immediate use, then it's okay. Uborer u'maniach le'altar. Ulevo bayom, if you select it for later during the day, lo ivror, and that should not be done. Ve'im berer na'asa kevoror la'otzar, and if one did it, it's as if he selects it for storage. Ve'chayav chatat. Okay, so these last three explanations are the halacha, that the permission applies only if all conditions are fulfilled, by hand, for immediate use, and separating the good from the bad.
That's only for food, or
No, selection applies to other matters also. Yeah. And then Amaru Rabbanan Kamei de Rava.
Let's say that you're in Chutzlar to wear a tie.
Here also some people wear a tie.
That's why I made Aliyah. Not to wear a tie. Anyhow, so if you choose a tie and you have a number of ties, now you all wear them, but you happen to like that tie better than the other one. Is that considered borer?
Yeah, if you need to, if you come and take immediately what you need, that's fine. So because you take the good from what you want is the good, what you do not want is the bad. So if you take what you want immediately, that's fine.
But if you're going through a whole process,
But if you're removing some like bad ties,
you're
so
not
that's
removing,
like
you've got them in front of you and you're looking
depends.
around to decide which one to
they're
take.
not even
Depends.
crowded on the rack. You can't
Right.
see them without separation.
Depends how you store them.
Couldn't say they're all good, but he likes one better.
So the one you like is considered the good for that moment, and the one you do not want is the
He doesn't have
bad.
any bad times.
That's why some wearing ties. Really, some wearing a tie.
Or
Is
shirt.
it also like that with shirts? Like you go into your closet on Shabbat morning, and you have 5 white shirts, and you look which one you want.
Yeah, so that's why it's a problem. If you need to remove the shirt, the one you do not want, in order to get to the one you want, it's like
So if they're one on top of the other, but if they're on separate.
then there's no problem. You just take the one you want.
Shabbos will never be the same.
It's part of my book. The cover book, yeah.
But the point is on Shabbos, you're allowed to prepare food for later on. In fact, you can even prepare more than you need if you think you might need it.
Depends on what type of preparation. If it's just preparing salad, fine. But if you need to select something,
I understand. But just say you're making a Shabbos service and you make more than you need, right? So you're allowed to. But here it says you can't take out something that you want. So to me, they're very similar in a way. You're not allowed to prepare on Shabbos for a child. Yeah, if you make more and you're left over, it's okay.
It depends on the nature of the preparation. If it's a preparation which does not involve a biblical labor, you can prepare. But if here we're talking about the preparation that involves a biblical labor, selection. So if you select something, even though it's not biblically forbidden because you do it by hand and you do it, you take the good from the bad, which is an abnormal way of selection, but the permission only applies to for an immediate use for that meal that you want to eat right now.
What happens if say, all of us who makes a salad, big salad for everybody. One of the people at the table doesn't want to eat a certain thing in the salad. If he goes out there, does he take out the salad that he likes?
Yeah, so you should take what he likes and leave on the plate what he does not like.
Today we're very different because we prepare everything with a utensil. Nobody puts their fingers into the food and takes it out. We all use a knife.
Why?
And fork
Somebody sent me this message about the falafel store. You got it?
Tastes better.
There's a sign that now they're sorry to the customers that the falafel doesn't taste as usual because they wash their hands, and it'll get better when the coronavirus.
They're just for germs, huh?
Yeah. So. Okay, so Amaru Rabbanan Kamei de Rava, they said before Rava Abaya's explanation, he said, he praised it, Shapir, Amar Nachmani Abaya said, well, and that's the explanation.
That's one of the reasons, by the way, so I understand that they made gefilte fish, minced fish, because of the fish bones.
You have to take out the
So you
bones.
shouldn't have to take the bones out. It was mixed.
All right.
It was a way.
So you don't need to remove the bones.
Made it.
How do you know that? Because the fish. I'm looking at regular fish. Good
from the bad. No, but if it's already in your mouth, you can just remove it. From your mouth, you're permitted to remove it.
You got a whole fish on the plate with a backbone in it, the whole thing.
You take off the fish.
Take off the fish meat and
Take off the top and turn it over. It's a whole process, I guess.
How do you identify a gefilte fish in the sea? Does anybody know?
In the sea.
In the sea, when you find it in the sea.
Jewish fishermen know exactly which one to catch.
So yeah, you identify the gefilte fish.
You know how?
It's a fish that has a carrot on its head.
the carrot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear.
You've only missed a few jokes.
Yeah, well, they say you only missed a few jokes. It's nicht gefallen. Yeah, okay. So, Rav Yirmiyah, now it says, היו לפניו שני מיני אוכלים. If somebody had two types of food before him, וברר ואכל, וברר והניח, and he selected and ate, or he selected and left it there, so Rav Ashi matni patur. Rav Ashi says he's exempt. Rabbi Yirmiyah midifti matni chayav. Now Rav Ashi matni patur, how can Rav Ashi say that he's exempt? Ve'atani chayav, the Braita before says that if one selects, if he selects it for immediate use, it should be permitted in the first place. If it's not for immediate use, it should be forbidden. But there's no case of patur aval asur. Patur means he's exempt, but there's no biblical liability.
What's good for supper, two different kinds of food. It's not like the other food is bad.
No, so
he doesn't maybe like it. It's not like
no. If you have right, no. So that's why I said bad and good is subjective. It's subjective. What you need right now is good for you. What you do not need right now is bad. Okay, so Rav Ashi matni patur. The question is, how can you say that? The answer is lo kashya. Ha bekanon v'tamchui, ha benafa v'chvara. The same distinction we mentioned yesterday between these tools. Kanon v'tamchui. How do you call it? Funnel. Funnel and plate. The funnel and the plate. There's no biblical prohibition. It's only rabbinic prohibition. And the sieve, that's a biblical prohibition. For that one is liable. Yeah, that's what we said. The chayav chatat liability always applies to a biblical prohibition, because that's the tool.
Is that a malacha? Are we using a sieve?
Of course, that's a selection. Sieve, that's the tool, the professional tool for selection, to separate the good from the bad. Kiata Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael. He said, Shabta de Rav Bivi Avai. They used to have this thing among the students that each day another student was responsible to prepare the meal for the other students. So one Shabbat was the time of Rav Bivi. Was his turn to arrange the meal. Ve'ikleu Rabbi Ami veRabbi Asi. Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi visited them also. So he had a basket of fruits. Shada kamayu kalkala defeire. Instead of taking the fruits out of the basket and serving them each one fruits, he just threw it out, spread it for them to take whatever they want. Now he says, I do not know what's the reason he did it that way. Velo yad ana, mishum de savar. Is it because he thought ochel mitoch psolet asur, that there's even a prohibition to select the food from the good from the bad? So since in that basket were not just fruits, but also some leaves and some things that they did not want to eat, so he thought there's a prohibition to take even what you want to eat from that basket. That's why all the content he poured out, and then there's no selection. Just take what you want without selecting it.
So Tim, on Shabbat, you're eating grapes. You can't take the seed out of the...
If you eat, in your mouth, you're permitted to... Before it gets into your mouth, you're not allowed. Of course, you shouldn't take the seeds out of the grapes, because that's selecting. That's right.
You can eat the grape, and what's left is the seed.
Actually, some people eat the seeds also.
Yeah.
By the way, this solution that Moshe Feinstein gave for somebody who said, how can, if you want to arrange the table, and it needs to select like the knives from the forks, all the cutleries mixed together. So there's a prohibition to select. So the solution was to just throw it on the table, and then it's not mixed. If it's not mixed, you can take whatever you want.
But each serves different functions. So the knife is for cutting.
But still, if it's two types of things and you select one, if it's a mixture and you select one from the other, there's a problem.
But it's not like you're taking one knife from the other knife. It's just like it's
knife from a fork also. So
that's called selection.
Selection, of course. If you need the knife,
because it's all cutlery in one box.
Right. And if you need a knife and it's covered with forks, so in order to get to the knife, you need to remove now the forks are the bad and the knife is what you need is the good. No, but we said it's subjective. What you need right now is the good. What you do not need right now is the bad.
You need both to set the table.
It's bad in
Relatives,
yeah, it's right relative.
But the question is, where do you draw the line?
I want to see a
Because
copy of this.
when you're spreading all over the floor, you spread it all on the floor, so everything is spread apart, and there's no problem with selecting.
Right.
And when it's all in a box, then you select it. Now, how far apart do they have to be from? Like, where do you draw the line?
If you do, once you do not need to remove one in order to get to the other, it's not a mixture. A mixture, the problem with selection is when you have a mixture. A mixture is a case where you need to remove something to get to the other thing. If you do not need to remove anything because it's all spread on the table and you can take whatever you want without removing something else, so you're fine.
At what point are you?
You basically unmix it.
At what point are you taking the good from the bad? Let's take your grapes. You've got the pips. So you might hold the grape with the tongue. And you take the grape. As you're taking the grape, you're also holding the pips. So you're separating them together.
No, so what is stationary is in place. What you remove is what you select. So if you take the good, that's fine. I can't imagine these unsorted cutlery drawers. They need better housekeeping. Okay. It's in these apartments of those not yet married yet, so they have a little balagan. Singles, yeah. Yeah. So you should take what you want to eat right now, and avoid removing the one you do not want to eat. Okay, says Velo Yadanu. So it says Rav Dimi. I do not know why Rav Dimi threw out all the content of the basket. If it's because he held that there's even a prohibition to remove the good from the bad, or maybe it was just he just wanted to be generous. He didn't want to serve each one just one or two fruits. He wanted to be generous and let them take whatever they want. Maybe that's the reason. Okay, Chizkiya Amar, הבורר תורמוסים מתוך פסולת שלהם. Turmus. What is turmus? Lupines. Lupines. It's something that requires extensive cooking because it's so hard. You need to cook it 7 times for it to soften. So if one selects these turmusim, lupines, mitoch psolet shalem, from their residue, chayav. Even though he's taking the good from the bad, he's taking the thing which he wants to eat, he's liable. Why? So Leima Kasavar Chizkiya, does he hold ochel mitoch psolet asur, that there's even a prohibition to take the food from the bed? No. The answer is shani turmusim. These lupines are different. The shalkei lei shiv'a zimnei, they need to be cooked 7 times in order to soften them. Ve'ilo shaklei lehu, ve'ilo shalkei lehu masrach. If they are not cooked, they become putrid. So even if you take the food, it's like you take the residue. How exactly is it? There are a few explanations here. There are no less than 3 different versions in this Gemara. Rashi says in the name of his teacher, Rabbeinu Alevi says that, where is it? Rabbeinu Alevi Doresh, he says that since it melts in your finger, becomes repulsive. So when you take it, it's like you take the bad. But anyway, the Poskim, the Achronim say that nowadays we don't have this, so it's not common, so it's not a relevant halacha. Yeah. Okay. Now to the labor of grinding. Amar Rav Papa, Haiman defarim silka. If one cuts beets to very small pieces, chayav mishum tochen, is liable on account of grinding. Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam says that one who cuts vegetables to very small pieces is liable for grinding. However, some poskim say that if you do it for immediate use, it's okay. So that's a dispute. If you want to be absolutely fine, cut it to larger pieces. To 2 small pieces. Right. So even though the Mishnah Berurah says not to limchot, not to protest against those who do it for immediate use, but it's better to cut it to larger pieces. Right. No, so if it's very small pieces, better avoid it.
So
that's dice to
TSP. TSP. What's this? Ah, I thought you mean 2 small pieces. TSP. Okay. And similarly, Amar Rav Menashe, Haiman de Salit Silte. If you take a wood, a beam, and you cut very small splinters from it, Chayav Mishum Tochen is also liable for grinding. You can grind not just food, but also wood.
Would you be?
It's grindable.
Why do you put on Shabbos?
Why would you do it? Whatever. If you do it, you're liable for grinding. Amar Ravashi, Ikapida Mishchata, if he's particular about the measurement, Chayav Mishum Mechatech is also liable for cutting. Anything you cut in a precise measurement, it's also a labor. For one act. There's a higher record later. Mefarek. Yeah. Ve'alash ve'afei, now kneading and baking. Amar Rav Papa. The Mishnah mentions Shavak Tana didan bishul samemanin. The Ava Mishkan. This Tana abandoned the labor of cooking the spices that was for the preparation of the Mishkan. They needed to dye tchelet, argaman, so they needed to cook these spices. So the labor of cooking actually was needed for the preparation of the Mishkan. Baking was not needed. They didn't need to bake anything to build the Mishkan. So this Mishnah abandoned the labor that was there, the cooking, the nakat ofe, and he speaks about baking. And the explanation is that Tana Didan, Sidura Defat Nakat, he is following the order of making bread. So it starts from planting, sowing, plowing, and all the thing you need to do until you get to bake the bread. Baking and cooking are the same, like the same labor.
Baking bread is not part of building the Mishkan, part of the avodah.
Exactly. So that's why we learn the melachot from those that were needed to build the Mishkan. And that's why he says baking was not there. But what was there was cooking. They did need to cook the spices for the dye.
So it's baking and Tolada.
So I'm not sure if it's considered Tolada or Av, but it does not really matter practically because they all belong to the same category of baking or cooking. Right.
But the Gemara in other cases, that does make a difference between baking in an oven and cooking.
Yeah, there are two different acts, but as far as Shabbat is concerned,
To do with food, it doesn't.
baking and cooking belong to the same category of the same primary labor of baking and cooking. Amar Rav Acha bar Rav Avira, Haiman the Shada Sikta Le'atuna. If one takes a peg, a metal iron peg, and throws it into the furnace, Chayav Mishum Mevashel is liable on account of cooking. And this is to say that cooking does not only apply to food, you can cook anything. And the Rambam says that the definition of cooking is any material you take, and either you soften it or harden it, that's cooking.
You apply heat to it?
Yeah, of course, through heat. So if you either soften it or harden it, that's cooking.
Why would you be doing it?
If you want to harden the metal,
You want to process it on Shabbos.
so if you do it, then you're liable.
Shabbos.
Yeah, the question is on account of what melacha, what labor is it? So labor is cooking. The question is pshita, of course. What's the novelty? You could have said that his intention is merely to strengthen the vessel. So you could have thought it's not considered cooking. Kamash Belan, the novelty is the mirpa rafi v'adar kamid, that it first softens, and that's its cooking, even though later it hardens, but at the stage it softens, that's the cooking of the metal. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, Ayman de artach kufra, if one heats pitch, Chayav Mishum Mevashel is also liable on account of cooking. And the question is pshita, of course. The answer is since it later hardens, when it cools down, it hardens. So you could have thought a temporary softening is not considered cooking. So the novelty is, even though it only softens temporarily, he's liable for cooking.
What about the case of an egg? I don't know. When you cook it, it seems to harden all the time. I don't know if it softens. It starts very soft.
No, so that obviously that's cooking, because anything you either harden or soften is cooking. The novelty here is that even though the softening is only temporary, it softens temporarily, it's also liable for cooking.
So water's the exception.
Yeah. So this is an exception. But
Over water, because nothing happens. That's why you can't heat it up. Because you heat it up and it cools off exactly the same as it
When
was.
you cook water, so some evaporates, so it's also
That's not
makes
the
it.
reason why you heat that.
But actually, the definition of cooking is anything you heat to the degree of 45 Celsius. So there might not even be steam yet. And yeah, once it's hot, you can keep it.
But you can't
Yeah.
heat water. You can't heat water to 45 degrees.
Okay. Amar Rava, Ayman Avad Chavita. Now comes the world record for doing one thing and being liable on account of quite a few labors. If one makes a barrel on Shabbat, and this Rashi says is not a wood barrel, it's earthenware barrel, right? Make a barrel of earthenware barrel. So one is liable to how many labors? Seven. Chayav mishum sheva chataot. 7 labors it takes to make one earthenware barrel. And Rashi mentions all of them. You have to first grind, you have to then select, you have to grind again, you have to knead, you have to smoothen, then you have to burn the fire, and then cook. So 7 labors for making this. If one makes an oven, that person is liable to 8 chataot, the same 7 as for the barrel, plus makeh patish, the final punch line that he smears something around the oven that finishes. No, so the only in an oven they used to smear that thing, but on the barrel they didn't. If one makes a beehive out of reeds, right? Kaveret shel kanim makes a beehive from reeds that he needs to weave or to put together. Chayav achat esrei chataot. He's liable to 11 chatat offerings. It involves 11 labors. And Rashi says Zomer first he has to prune to cut the reeds. So he's liable for harvesting and for planting and for gathering together, for selecting, to smoothen them, and then to grind them, and then to cut them, and then to mesich. So all the labors Rashi mentions. If he ties the rim, so then he's liable to 2 more liabilities. For the labor of sewing and tying.
So what's interesting was that before, when a person cuts a piece of wood, in one act, it's kind of 2 things. And here, it's kind of many things, but it's many acts.
It's a few acts, right? It's not one act, but it's one process of making one thing. Okay, if one shears the wool and whitens it, launders it, אמר רבא בר חנא אמר רבי יוחנן, התובע צמר שעל גבי בהמה בשבת, if you spin the wool when it's still attached to the animal. That's a special expertise. You need to, if you do that,
You won't see the sheep afterwards.
chayav shalosh chatat, you're liable to 3 chatat offerings. It involves 3 labors. Why? Achat mishum gozez, one for shearing. Ve'achat mishum menapetz. What's menapetz? That's heckling. Disentangling. Okay. Combing. Okay. Combing. Ve'achat mishum toven, one for spinning. But this is what Rabbi Yochanan said, but Allah does not follow that because Rav Kahana Amar is an abnormal way of doing it, and therefore there's no biblical liability. And derech gzizah b'chach, it's not the normal way of shearing. Then derech menapetz b'chach, it's not the normal way of combing. Then derech tavui b'chach, it's not the normal way of spinning, so there's no liability. And the question is that so? Velo? But for the Mishkan, they actually did it. They spun it when it was still attached to the animals. The Atanya, as the verse says, v'tavu et ha'izim. It says they spun the goats. So the Braita says, Mishmei de Rabbi Nechemia, shatuf ba'izim v'tavu ba'izim. So they did it, the spinning while it was still attached to the goats. Al matviya al gabei be'emash matviya. So it's called spinning. The answer is no. There in the Mishkan, they had special experts. Chokhmah yetera shana, they had the extra wisdom. Normal people do not do it. So it's considered an abnormal way of doing it, and therefore there's no liability for a normal person who does it. Tanu Rabbanan, hatoleshet hakanaf, if one detaches, plucks a feather from a bird, ve'akotmo, and then if you cut the stick of the feather, how do you call that? The
quill part.
hard part,
Yeah.
The tip of
like a quill, like to make a quill, right? Ve'akotmo ve'amorto, and then if you remove the feather from that stick, just to put it into a pillow or something, you just remove the feather itself. So one who does these three things, chayav shalosh chatat, is liable for 3 labors. Why? Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, tolesh, the one who plucks, chayav v'shum gozez, that's like shearing. Kotem, the one who cuts it, chayav v'shum mechatech, that's the labor of cutting to a specific measurement. Ve'memaret, if you remove the feather from the middle stick, so chayav v'shum memachek, that's like smoothing, right? Smoothing. HaKosher ve'amatir, and the question is, Kshira b'Mishkan, where was tying in the Mishkan? Did they need to tie something to make the Mishkan? To tie? Why? They need to weave, they wove them, but
When it was put up, they should have the same.
no, they didn't tie it, they just put it on top.
It was put up a root, wasn't it? I think they hung it up.
Lulaot, okay, but there's no tying. At Krasim, they had these hooks that they put together, but there's no tying. So that's a question. Kshira b'Mishkan, eich yavai. So Amar Rava tried to say, sheken koshrin b'yetei dot oalim. There were pegs, and there's a string you tie to the peg, like a. So that's the case of tying. But the question is, that tying was not really. Ahu kosher b'nat latiru. It's tying temporarily, and the liability on Shabbat is only for tying a permanent knot, not something temporary. So therefore, El Amar Abaye, sheken orgei yeriot, those who weave the yeriot, how do you say yeriot? The curtains. So then, when you weave something, sometimes the thread is cut, and you just tie it to connect it together.
A loose thread at the end.
Loose thread at the end, or even in the middle, I thought. In the middle, yeah. If something is cut, so then you tie it, and then you have like if tzitzit, the string, you can tie it, and then not just at the end, even in the middle. Shenifseka lahen nima, if a thread was cut, koshrim ota, they tie it. Okay, so they needed sometimes to do it when they prepared the curtains for the Mishkan. The question is, Amar le Rava, okay, teratzta kosher, you explained the labor of tying, but matir, what about untying? Where do they need to untie? V'chitayim, if you want to suggest that similarly, just like they sometimes needed to tie, they also needed to untie. If it so happened that they had 2 adjacent such knots, if 2 threads were cut in the adjacent place, they needed to tie them both. It's not nice to have such a protrusion, so they sometimes needed to untie it in order to change it. It doesn't look nice, so obviously they didn't do it. Such a thing would not be done even before a king of flesh and blood. Obviously they didn't do it. They in advance they did not avoided it. So Ela Amar Rava v'Itayim Rabbi Eli sheken tzadei chilazon koshrin u'matirin. The hunters of the chilazon, they needed to tie and untie the net, and that's the labor that they had to do. והתופר שתי תפירות, the one who sews 2 stitches. The question is, if you just insert the needle once and then twice into and try to connect 2 pieces of, it doesn't connect. You can simply, it's not sewing. It's not doesn't. The purpose of sewing is to connect something, and this doesn't do anything. So the answer is, of course, Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan v'ushek sharan. You must tie the ends of the thread, and then you're liable for both tying and also sewing. Hakoreh al manat litpor, the one who tears in order to sew. Kriya b'mishkan mi'ava, was there any tearing in the Mishkan? The answer is yes. Amar Rabba v'Rabbi Zeir adam mutar vayu sheken yeri'ah shenafal badarna. If there was a wormed curtain, one curtain was eaten by worms, so it was punctured by worm, So then if there's just a small hole there, you sometimes need to tear it in order to sew it nicer for it to look better. So they did need to tear in order to sew. So that's a labor. Yeah, they had everything there. Okay, thank you very much.